Detroit, Chicago, LA. If you look at all of these cities from above, they're in the grid, you know? So you call that the orthogonal logic of a landscape, a structure that people respond to. The streets condition movement. The movement is regulated. People have a sense of start, stop, slow down. There's a choreography going on. So any artist, any MC, any producer, any creative mind is going to be affected by the landscape. So if you're in a favela and you're doing karaoke funky, if you're in Detroit and you're listening to hard techno, if you're in Harlem and you're listening to free jazz, these are all because of influences of the environment and the landscape and your social milieu, your social network. So I'm using this as an example, a metaphor of thinking about dancing with the city. All right, I'm going to play one clip here. Click. So I'm going to skip ahead on it because time is tight. What you were just seeing is one of the first montage films of Dziga Vertov. He was a really amazing filmmaker who made a very famous film called Man with a Camera. So the reason I'm referring to that when I was talking about the city is that he wanted to make the camera move throughout certain parts of the Russian Revolution and certain parts of cities and document the city as a way of making a visual rhythm. So he's the first filmmaker to start thinking as a DJ. And he liked to call this process dialectical montage. So he was telling a story made from fragments of the everyday. So when you hear, like in hip-hop, there's a keeping it real, and when people are talking about this theater of the rhyme, these are things that I look back, early 20th century. Again, Méliès was a magician who wanted to apply magic technique to film. Then you think of Dziga Vertov, who was a filmmaker who wanted to apply this idea of Soviet realism, what they call dialectical montage, to this idea of telling a story of fragments, of small bits of film. So I got the rights to his film, and I'm working with his estate from the Russian Museum of the History of Soviet Cinema. That project was presented at the Tate Modern in London this summer. We had about 6,000 people come out. It was a great show. This next project I'm showing you, we got the Greek government to give me the Acropolis for an evening, and I did a big concert there. This is hip-hop, so I've got to do it like that. And so we put a big sound system throughout the ruins of the Acropolis, which for Greek culture and sort of Western high culture is very powerful statement. So the idea was to turn the ancient theater ruins into a kind of a sound system, and I projected some of my film remixes of a very famous film by American film director D.W. Griffith. So he has a film called Birth of a Nation, which is considered a very racist film and very negative. So I got the rights to that film from Harvard University, Harvard's film archive. There's a gentleman by the name of Bruce Jenkins, who was the curator there. It's a long story. I'm trying to show you guys art projects. So we started with the Arctic, we looked at a little bit of history, we look at sampling, we look at collage, we look at this idea of the director as DJ. So what I'm doing here is saying, one of my favorite science fiction writers is a gentleman by the name of William Gibson. He has a great phrase where he says, the future is already here, it's just unevenly distributed. So we live in the multiple time zones, and they're all simultaneous. I love that idea. So when I was in negotiations with the Greeks, they said, but why do you want to play a KKK film at the Acropolis? Which, you know, is a great question. And so I had to start, you know, whenever you do a negotiation with a very big government state, you know, this is for the Greeks and Western Europe, very powerful symbol of Western, you know, high culture. And so I was going to do a hip-hop remix of KKK film. They were very skeptical. So I had to, you know, I majored in philosophy and French literature, so I had to do a lot of stuff about Greek theater and saying hip-hop is new theater. And so then they're like, okay, well, theater, and someone rhyming, okay, that's acting. You know, then I said, well, you guys are Greek, right? You have comedy, tragedy, and they're like, oh, we get it. So if you think about theater at the ancient beginnings of time, you know, what was going on in the West, the actors would come out onto the stage, and the theater was set up so that you could whisper and you could talk. And everyone, you would be wearing a mask of the comedy or a mask of the tragedy, and they would be wearing, you know, ancient sort of Greek clothes. So I said, okay, we put the sound system in the middle, and I'm going to remix the characters in the film. So the idea was it's ancient theater with contemporary digital art. And it was a very big success for them. We had 6,000 people fill the ancient theater, and we were projecting very high definition film throughout the ruins. I'd love to do something like this in Brasilia, maybe, you know, for like Oscar Niemeyer remix. But when you're thinking about how people think about preservation of history, digital media is very slippery because you can sample history and change and transform it all the time. Nothing is finished. If you have a digital file, you can open the file up and change it again, again, and again, and again. So for art, it doesn't mean that it's about permanence. In fact, it's about impermanence. So sampling says, okay, I have a memory, but that memory can change all the time. When you write an essay, when you make a film, when you make a sound, when you make an art piece, it's not about being finished anymore. In fact, anything can always be transformed. So for art, that's a very strange place because we have had thousands and thousands of years of people wanting permanence. And they want to have the monument, and they want to have a big building, and they want to have all this stuff. But for this generation, everything is flow. Everything can change and transform like that. So I wanted to do a kind of project here. It was a big art project, and the Greek government was very happy. We got great reviews, a lot of people. And the next band they had was Radiohead. So after that, Radiohead said, that's cool. And so they wanted to do a concert there as well. So sometimes art, then you have a commercial band, and you know, so sometimes if I do a project, somebody will hear about it. You'll see Moby do something bigger. He sells millions of records. So I like doing fun art projects in these kind of contexts, which is why I came to Multidisciplinary. And so maybe next year for Multidisciplinary we'll do some remix in Brazilian, okay? So let me play you a clip of this, and this film is a very intriguing film because it's all white people in blackface. And Birth of a Nation set the tone for American cinema for the next century. But as an artist, I'm very intrigued with how it was propaganda for this idea of definition of race. And it was used to create ethnic boundaries and to create fictions of ethnic behavior that were used to transform the American populace into a populace of fear about the rise of black people. And in the film, what happens is a black person is elected to the highest government office, and the white people start going crazy, right? So you have Obama versus Republicans, right? So it's still going on. And I'm sure the Republicans are still watching Birth of a Nation. So the idea was when you have director as DJ, you can transform the film, make an art statement about it, and nowadays you have other directors like Peter Greenaway as a DJ. You have Mike Figgis, who did a very famous film, Leaving Las Vegas. He's DJing now. So a lot of people are changing the roles of what the artist is about. And you have someone like Vic Muniz, who's doing happenings, he's doing film, photography. So people can exist in different mediums. And this is very important to me to say that this was looking at theater, it was looking at digital media, and collision of high-tech versus ancient history. So let me just play you the trailer to give you an idea of the project.